deep in the woods. There was a clearing that hikers avoided without ever agreeing why. In the center sat an old wooden bench, rotted, splintered, and sunken into the soil. No one ever saw anyone maintain it, yet it was always strangely clean, as if someone wiped it down every morning. The strange part wasn't the bench itself. It was that it never stayed in the same place. Some days it sat facing the trees. Other days it faced the trail. Once it appeared beside the river, even though no one had carried it there. People joked that it wandered, but no one ever saw it move. One evening, a traveler walking through the forest noticed the bench sitting directly in the middle of the path. The traveler stepped around it, but the moment they passed, the wood creaked behind them. When they turned, the bench was closer, only a few feet away. They walked faster. The bench creaked again, closer. By the time they reached the edge of the woods, the bench sat right behind them, as if it had followed the entire way. The traveler ran into the nearby city, but when they looked back, the bench was already at the tree line facing them. The next morning, the bench was gone from the woods entirely. People found it in the city park, instead right under a streetlight, like it had finally decided it preferred watching people. And now, every night, it changes places again. A wanderer once stumbled upon a city that wasn't on any map. It sat at the end of a forest trail where there should have been nothing but trees. The buildings were tall, but the windows were dark. The streets were clean, but no one walked them. The air felt heavy, like the whole place was holding its breath. The wanderer sat on a metal bench in the center of the empty plaza, trying to understand how a whole city could exist without a single sound. That's when the streetlights flickered on all at once. Even though the sky was still bright, a low hum filled the air. The buildings seemed to lean inward as if listening. The wanderer stood to leave, but the path they had entered from was gone. In its place was another street lined with identical buildings. Every direction led deeper into the city. The hum grew louder. Windows began to glow with a pale, bluish light, not warm like lamps, more like eyes opening. The wanderer ran until they found a bench at the edge of a small park. They sat, exhausted, and the moment they did, the hum stopped. The city went silent again. When they stood up, the forest trail had reappeared behind them. They didn't look back as they left, but they could feel the city watching. A camper set up for the night near an old wooden bench deep in the woods. The bench looked like it had been there for decades, half sunk into the soil. As the sun set, the camper noticed something strange. The forest around them was completely silent. No birds, no insects, not even wind. Then came the feeling of being watched. At first, the camper thought it was just nerves, but when they glanced toward the bench, they saw a tall, thin figure standing behind it. Its shape was human, but wrong, too long, too still. The camper blinked, and the figure was suddenly closer. They grabbed their flashlight and shined it toward the bench. Nothing. The figure was gone. But when they turned around, it was standing at the edge of the trees behind them. The camper ran through the woods until they reached the outskirts of a nearby city. Only when they stepped onto the sidewalk did the figure stop following. It stood at the tree line, unmoving, as if it couldn't enter the city. The next day, the camper returned with others to show them the bench and the figure. The bench was still there, but the figure wasn't. That night, though, someone in the city reported seeing a tall shape standing just beyond the streetlights, waiting. In a strange little city surrounded by dense forest, there was a bench in the town square covered in carvings. Not initials or hearts warnings. Don't sit. Don't stay after dark. DONT, look up. People assumed it was a prank until one evening. A traveler sat on the bench to rest. The moment they did, the carvings began to shift, as if the wood itself was rewriting the warnings. The traveler leaned closer. New words were forming, too late. The streetlights flickered out. The city went silent. The traveler tried to stand, but their body felt heavy, like invisible hands were holding them down. A cold wind blew from the direction of the woods, carrying whispers that didn't sound like any language. Shadows stretched across the ground, reaching toward the bench. When the lights finally came back on, the traveler was gone. Only a new carving remained on the bench. One more. People avoid the bench now, but every few weeks a new carving appears. A hiker, exploring the woods, found a narrow path they had never seen before. At the end of it sat a stone bench, cracked and moss-covered. Beyond the bench was a small gate leading into a city, but not the city the hiker knew. This one looked older, dimmer, like a faded photograph. Curious, the hiker stepped through the gate. The city streets were familiar but wrong. Buildings that should have been new were old, and places that should have been crowded were empty. It felt like walking through a memory. Then the hiker saw someone who looked exactly like themselves walking down the street. The double didn't see them. It simply continued on, repeating movements the hiker recognized from the day before, buying food, sitting on a bench, checking the sky. The hiker realized the truth. The city wasn't a place. It was yesterday. Panicked, they ran back to the gate, but the stone bench was gone. The woods were gone. Only the strange, quiet city remained. Some say the path reappears for others, and if you follow it, you might see your own yesterday too, but you might not make it back to today.